There's the one last night or on Saturday. Sean Strickland.
Whew. That's a good way to start. Check the Kick podcast, Sherdog.com. I got Jay Pettry with me. Welcome to the show. How are you, man? Glad you're here. Crazy ass weekend.
Man, it's weekends like these that I kind of miss my old show. But as soon as you mentioned, we were talking the other day, because obviously for those of us watching, the four of us, Dev, myself, Keith Schillen, and Ben Duffy, had an MMA fantasy draft, and we were discussing, okay, what about collaborations for shows? And so when you presented this to me about talking about 293 and Noche UFC, this was before everything happened. I'm like, heck yeah. And then presenting it to me again to be like, oh, hey, just to make sure. And I'm like, double heck yeah, because what we have to talk about today, I think there are some fights this weekend, and I think a couple things happened. I mean, I'm sure you can carry on from here.
We got on here, and the first thing I told you was we live in a world where Sean Strickland is the UFC champion. And this was not one, we saw a fight this weekend with Kape Mariscal where he won, via arm break, where his opponent goes to post on a takedown and his arm gets ruined. That could have happened. And something like that, the way that Izzy was looking and has been looking, you'd figure almost that's the way he'd lose the belt against someone like Sean Strickland.
A banana peel kind of incident.
Totally.
Yeah.
But that was just not the case. And I'm actually really happy for Sean that this fight wasn't an early stoppage, and it could have rightfully been stopped in the first round, and it would have been maybe early, but I would have still been okay with it. But I don't want to say that he pitched a shutout, but this was the most one-sided fight that Israel Adesanya has been in the UFC, and that's including him probably getting out wrestled and full mounted by Jan Blachowicz and getting knocked out by Pereira.
Yeah, I mean, even in the first Pereira fight, he was, he had, I forget the official scorecards, but he had won some rounds. I don't believe it was like the Korean zombie Yair Rodriguez where he was losing and then the big knockout. But I think it was maybe a comeback for Pereira. But this was, it wasn't quite pillar to post, but in terms of effectiveness, in terms of what Sean Strickland did, this was a pillar to post performance. When Adesanya fought Robert Whittaker the second time, I believe at the time, and I got roasted for it, and I'm okay with it, I scored it for Sherdog on the play-by-play and scored it in favor of Whittaker. And I stated afterwards, this was the best possible expectation that Robert Whittaker had with his skills, with what Izzy brought to the table, and with the previous outcome. This was the best Whittaker could hope for, was taking him right down to the wire. If there were a third fight, I don't think it would do better. I think it would be more like Volkanovski versus Holloway 3, where Max really was behind instead of actually catching up. Where this performance was not like that. This was a Strickland's best game, worked in a way that I don't think, I mean, I can't say none because I can't speak for them, but we as MMA prognosticators were discussing, okay, what can Sean Strickland do to beat Izzy? What does he bring to the table? What are his best skills? What are his best avenues to victory? And we had to go, he's got a good jab. He's got a 1-2. He can throw a leg kick when he wants to. He's fairly defensively sound, but can get caught if he's rushed and rushes himself. But this, man, Deb, break down for me how the heck Strickland did this, because I know you were really looking at that, like how he did to steal from my buddy Jack Slack, shout out Fightland. How did Sean Strickland kill the king?
What's really funny is I'm going to definitely answer that. My idea of how this fight was going to go was I thought the only way that Sean was going to have success would be to just press him with the jab, get him against the cage, and then cause some sort of entanglement where he could get like a standing back take because I know he has like high level BJJ, but not great takedowns. I was like, maybe he'll take like a flyweight Pantoja type, you know, like really, really just get on and pressure him against the cage takes. I didn't expect that. What I expected to happen was him to just get leg kicked to bits, bite on a bunch of feints, and then get his head kicked off. That's what I expected. Sean Strickland's, he just took Adesanya's whole entire tool shed from him. It wasn't just Sean Strickland's, like, it was like low key a masterful performance. Like, I watched it last night laying in bed again with no audio, and just the teeps to just press him against the cage, and then I wouldn't even call him checking the leg kicks, but him lifting up that front leg, almost just like kind of making it rubbery and weird to just absorb the damage, and then just plant his foot back down and be able to fire off Izzy. And then the teep kicks to force him against the cage. He understood his movement. He knows he's going to bob back and forth against the cage. And he was just able to jab ahead of Izzy. And it also seemed like every time he hit Izzy, like it really bothered him, where he would like have to reset. He was causing Izzy to reset over and over again. And he just forced him to play like high speed chess, high speed checkers, just like high speed, where he's like in your face, jab, 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 exit, press the action, exit. And I also think, and I'm not going to say that Izzy got exposed, but his boxing really did, where Izzy did not have any back foot counters, and Izzy doesn't throw his right hand. He only has one straight offensive weapon, and it's a jab. And every time he knew Izzy would get in the pocket. If you get him in the pocket, he swings big hooks, and he just knew his straight punches were going to be there faster. It's really incredible. And then his front leg, the teeps, you could tell, like you could see Izzy's face, like I think the teeps to the body had a lot more impact than anyone realized. Being forced on your back foot over and over again, then getting teeped in the, you know, the Usyk belt line over and over again. That's going to zap your energy. And he just had the Izzy in the 5th round of this fight was not the Izzy that was in the Kelvin Gastelum fight. Like, he was a broken man. It was weird.
There were momentum sways in this fight that were kind of predictable until they threw everything out the window. Like,
sure,
I thought I wasn't, you know, thinking he could take a borderline 10-8 and hurt him, but I had the idea, okay, maybe Strickland's best success can be coming out of the gate hot, driving Izzy back, driving him against the cage, putting that jab always in his face, 1-2s, bang, bang, just, you know, double and tripling up, nothing too fancy, but just enough to make Izzy really, really back away and kind of push that. I thought, okay, maybe he can have that success until Adesanya figures him out, till he figures the timing out, because let's face it, I'm not a boxing professional. I've trained in martial arts, but I am not a fighter. To see that Strickland's combinations and his strikes are fairly rudimentary when it comes to the arsenal that is available, but maybe mastering the basics are what we do here, and that's how we succeed. When the second round rolled in and Strickland's volume went down a little bit, Adesanya started picking up on the timing. He was looping his left hand over the jab. Whatever those effective things were happening, I thought, okay, here it is. Adesanya, he gave up the first round. What do they always say about John Jones? He downloaded the information to his computer, and he figured it out, and he was going to go from there. And then he didn't. And that might have been the most baffling outcome, was the third round. Because nothing changed to hurt Adesanya in the second round. He just couldn't seem to maintain what was effective enough to win him the second round. And I don't understand that. I really genuinely don't understand that, because it seemed like he picked up Strickland's timing, and it wasn't like Strickland changed his tempo that I saw of any notable variety. The only thing I saw was maybe wear and tear and the excellent job that Strickland did checking leg kicks, because he didn't just check shin to shin. He would bring his shin back at an angle so it would ricochet off instead of having a straight on impact and hurting them both. And it was brilliant, but I just,
I think Eric Nixick, they developed a perfect game. They
Yeah,
they took little bits of, okay, you watch the Robert Whittaker fight. Israel Adesanya will have prolonged exchanges with you in the pocket.
Yep.
Izzy doesn't have great. Next time you watch an Izzy highlight, if you're listening to this, watch his eyes in the pocket. There's a picture of Israel Adesanya closing his eyes and swinging and hitting Robert Whittaker. That's something that is known. He can get a little bit. He can get clipped up in the pocket. He can get wild. He does have good vision. He has a really good hook. But he can get a little overzealous and maybe not have the best vision in the pocket. I've said this forever. If anyone's listened to anything I've ever done, I've always said Sean Strickland has probably the best vision in that division way prior to this, even prior to him getting knocked out by Pereira. But they saw, okay, he can be pressured against the cage. We're going to use that from this fight. He will have prolonged exchanges with you in the pocket. He primarily throws hooks in the pocket. We're going to take that from this fight. If you, like Jan Blachowicz, if you stop his kicking game. That's what he used to really get his offense going. Izzy couldn't get his kicks off. And then he's like, shit, I can't find him with my jab.
Yeah.
The shot that dropped Izzy in the first round was Sean jabbing, but also kind of parrying his rear hand. And then he fires a straight right behind it and just clips him. Izzy's whole neck and heads. I mean, he was looking over his shoulder when he got clipped with that. Like, Sean sat down on that punch. I think Sean Strickland not having power needs to probably be a little bit more. I think it's more of him wanting to finally sit down on punches, but he couldn't get through. Sean's got great vision, great defense, but all of his like weird hand fighting, his hand parrying, like he just puts things in between the targets. So like you're throwing a shot at him, he moves his head and puts something in between it. Like the body kicks, he caught every body kick, blocked every head kick. I think Izzy was just like dumbfounded. And Izzy does like a lot of, you watch Izzy, like, I'm sure you'll watch this fight again because it's also just funny. Like, this fight is actually funny. But they're playing Izzy's music before the fight, and he does this like Michael Jackson, like turn around spin. Like, he's a big smoke and mirrors guy. Where like he's doing all this flashy stuff, and you're like, fuck, I'm fighting the style bender. This is crazy. And then he has a little bit of success. Israel Adesanya could build off a tiny bit of success. Oh yeah. But if you just never let him have that success, that's what happened. Like Sean just like never let anything, like Izzy couldn't get anything off. It was weird.
It was fascinating because even the round that Adesanya won, and I said that he won the second round, and I think all of the scorecards officially were 49-46. And I believe the second round was the one for Adesanya. It wasn't like he like won the round like in a big way.
Sean lost the round.
He did it. Yeah, he did enough. He threw just enough to win the round, and he was just I don't even think he was more accurate. I just think he just had more going, and I just was that the whole approach was strange to me. And there's another question that cropped up several times, so I'm curious your thoughts on it. Mark Goddard did not stop the fight in the first round, and he did stop the fight for Aljamain Sterling and Sean O'Malley. Obviously different positions, different fighters, different body language. Do you think that Goddard should have stepped in and waved off the fight in the first round between Strickland and Izzy? Because he could have. And I don't mean just because of the accumulation of damage. I mean the active physical surrender of Adesanya turning against the cage wall and going like this until he worked his way up.
Sean Strickland did the same thing to Brendan Allen, where like if you get hurt against the cage, he has really good cage control, where he'll kind of like pin one. He'll go one-on-one where he'll try to like pin one of your hands, use his body and chest, and then just throw those big powerful hooks, head to head, but just hooking big hooks like he had. I mean, Adesanya was down bad. He was effed up. Yeah. Like he was on Queer Street, like, bad. And the reason why I know people are saying like, oh, maybe he didn't fight well because he got buzzed up and he could never recover. But if that was the case, he wouldn't have won the second round. Right. That's exactly right, because he recovered enough to do the things he wasn't doing in the first round and not get clipped. But between the second and third, Nixick went into this moment was really funny. By the way, Nixick goes in there and just cracks the whip on Sean, and Sean's like, yeah, I know. Like he's yelling back at, you can beat this guy. I think he was yelling, you can beat this guy. Yeah. He's like, you can. And then between the third and the fourth, he's like, go out there and beat this guy. You could beat this guy. And Sean even said, like, here's the thing is around my lunch break today, I started scrolling through Instagram because I like to see who Sean's been training with just to get he trains with everybody. Anyone listening to this
he's
knows.
An extreme couture. So yeah, that's a revolving door.
Total. And like not only people that train there, but like all the dudes that come from overseas that they have a fight in Vegas, they'll come and do it, you know, but like this dude has had hard sparring rounds with Alex Pereira, Magomed Ankalaev, just all these big names where you're not gonna go out there and put your thumb down on him and make him be like Israel Adesanya couldn't do anything offensively to actually make Sean afraid. Like you have to do what Alex Pereira did, and he wasn't afraid of Pereira. Look how he fought Pereira. He fought Alex Pereira like an idiot.
And it was Adesanya never seemed to get respect.
Never.
And that's something I've seen him do for years. I mean, not tons of years, because again, Adesanya, you'd actually be surprised at how recent he joined the UFC. It was only back in 2018 that he made his debut against Razor Rob. But he hits guys and they go, you know, the Chris Tucker rush hour, which one of y'all kick me kind of thing. That he hit like obviously Derek Brunson did what Derek Brunson did, and we all remember that fight. But one of the first strikes that Adesanya hit him with got Brunson to go, oh, whoa, this is different. So yeah, the punching power was on the side of Sean Strickland, which is just, you know, if you were to have the checklist of the pros and cons, the whose side, what side has the advantage here, and yet he did the darn thing. I guess then, does he keep the belt in his next fight? We're not even talking about who he fights next because the options are available. Does Strickland win his next fight?
He's still an underdog, hefty to Adesanya and pretty hefty to Duplessis. Yep. And like, this is an analytical show. This is not a betting show, but I will drop gambling stuff here and there. But like, if he shows up the way he did on Saturday night, my thing is like, from what I saw against Adesanya, like I put this on Twitter because somebody was bashing Eugene Behrman in the corner. I don't think Eugene Behrman did a good job, but my response to that was, in Eugene's defense, you can't teach a fighter new skills in between rounds.
Fight. Yeah, right.
And Izzy would have had to learn new skills in that fight to make an adaptation. Like, hey, can you actually pivot and throw a straight right counter? Can you backward L step and throw a straight right? Izzy doesn't have that ability. That's just something he can't do. Like, look at the way, for example, the way very recently Sean O'Malley knocked out Aljamain Sterling. Pivot, timing something behind it, and just crack. Like, Izzy doesn't throw anything straight. Everything, even Eugene was like, throw the overhand right. He's thrown it 10 times. He can't land it. Like,
well, they always say that the straight shot beats the hook. And Strickland is primarily a right down the pipe striker. You know, he'll split the guard. He'll follow that right hand. You know, it might be a cross, but it's not going far. It's going right down at you. And Adesanya couldn't time. He couldn't time that. And I'm not disparaging Israel Adesanya here. It just, in the specific performance, he couldn't time that. And I've seen him time that before, which makes you wonder what happened.
I think it's also too, Sean Strickland just throws that offbeat, really fast 1-2 straight down the pipe. Mm-hmm. And that's going to beat every single hook and every single overhand. If someone steps in to throw the overhand and you just pop them with a jab, they're going to have to especially if it's, you know, something good, it's going to cause their head to maybe move back and it's going to cause them to reset, and they're just never going to get it off. And Sean Strickland's, like, his hand speed was actually super impressive, and not just striking, but also his ability to just get shit up. Like,
the hand fighting and the parrying was something like, that I would, that, and I fear this for the sport, and not because I dislike Strickland or anything like that. I fear that fighters are going to start drilling the Philly shell. and they're going to start training with the Philly shell. And that is not a good idea.
No.
With 4-ounce gloves, ladies and gentlemen. This is just a man who figured it out. This isn't everybody figures it out. This is the equivalent of Michael, obviously skills difference, but Michael Venom Page fighting with his hands down and knocking guys out going like this from his side. That's not something you do. This is not something you emulate. This is something he did. And I mean, the Philly shell is terrific, and it works wonderfully in boxing. There's that boxer that's 50-0 that clowned some MMA fighter once upon a time that is really excellent at the Philly shell, but I just think
don't do this in MMA.
It's going
to work at middleweight.
It's not going to happen very often. Yeah, especially middleweight. Oh my god,
this will work at middleweight, but you go up one or you go down one, like think of a power puncher, Paulo Costa against a guy pairing with a Philly shell, he'd knock your teeth out. And I'm just one of those guys. But yeah, I mean, or even Dustin Poirier somewhat operates out of some similar shoulder rolling.
Yeah, sure.
And he just got his head kicked right off. I love Dustin Poirier, one of my favorite fighters. Yeah. So that,
he got punted.
But it's his game is the equivalent of driving to work every day only using your knee. The people that drive with their knee. But Sean Strickland's done it a million times. He can do it. But you should I shouldn't just start doing it. Right. Weird ass fight. Really, really cool though. So many improvements from Strickland too. His cage cutting was wonderful here. Again, the teep kicks to the body, the constant pressure causing Izzy to reset. People are saying Izzy looked off in this fight. Dana said he looked off in this fight. Do you think that was because of Sean Strickland, or do you think he's got something else going on?
Better call him A, better call him B. I think Strickland's high pressure approach. Listen, Adesanya has fought pressure strikers many times, like the example I just brought up, Paulo Costa. Paulo Costa is a rampager. I mean, remember what he did to Johnny Hendricks? He knocked him out of the sport, basically, knocked him into a barbecue restaurant. Now, when you have that kind of style, Adesanya picked up on it, was able to beat him at his own game by intercepting him, by doing that kind of thing. He couldn't do that to Strickland. And he has the potential and the capability of doing so. He just didn't implement it. I've seen a lot of... this sport goes, this sport is, 30 years old, and it goes as fast as possible. But you see people talk about 3 days ago, Adesanya is better than Anderson Silva. And now the narrative is, is Adesanya peaked? Has the fight mileage caught up to him? Has the 35 or the 34-year-old hit his number of fights because he also had 80 kickboxing matches ahead of time, has been fighting for 20 years or something like that? That's all immediately the story is he faded? And I can't say that yet. I just seeing what he did to Alex Pereira in the rematch. Just, I'm sick of your stuff, Master Wayne, and just decked Pereira in the way that you're oh, okay, that's what he can do. I see him approaching the rematch that nobody wants. Do you want the rematch? Does anybody want the rematch besides the UFC? Besides the UFC, because it's the biggest money fight.
I will troll social media because I like to look and see what people say, and also people post a bunch of funny stuff.
So they do. It's the internet, man.
Yeah, God, MMA social media too is just it's you're playing in the pig trough. It's just fucking gross.
Go to the Sherdog forums, brother.
You're gonna catch a cold just being on there, But no one seems to want this, and for me, even if you remove in the first round before the knockdown, Izzy was just covering up, pillaring, and just letting Sean get off on him. And even if you remove dropping him, Sean Strickland would have won the first round, in my opinion. I was already ready to put a 10-9 on that before him getting dropped. So you remove the dropping of Izzy, and he just cleanly beat him.
Yep.
Like just clean performance. And this got me thinking, like looking at this win and looking at Izzy's last 3 fights, like, yeah, he knocked out Alex Pereira, but like Alex Pereira was bombing on him.
Yeah.
And then before that, he had a close fight with Pereira and ended up getting finished in the 5th round. So like, has Izzy even looked like the Izzy that beat, Paulo Costa in 2020? Like, has he looked like, look at Izzy's record. I've got it pulled up here in front of me on Sherdog.com. He lost to Jan Blachowicz. Yep. He came back and had that fight with Marvin Vettori. That was a boring fight. He won it, but it was a boring fight. He had the fight with Robert Whittaker after that, which was another like,
real close fight.
You scored it. I scored it for Izzy, but I saw.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Like,
basically, everybody scored it for Izzy. So no, there's no issue there.
But there are scorecards out there for Robert Whittaker. Yeah. And even like a lot of, people like me and you scored it that way. Then he had the Jared Cannonier fight where Cannonier took some rounds off him, another close fight. Then he has the first Alex Pereira fight. Mm-hmm. Then he has a second Pereira fight, and then now he has this fight. You can still win a fight, and people don't understand this, but like you can win a fight and not look great.
Oh yeah.
And if you take a lot of the recent, Izzy's last 3 fights, if you watch all 3 of those fights, you're going to find some time where he's not looking great. He is not looking the way he did when he knocked out Paulo Costa. This was almost 3 years ago. This was on September 26th of 2020 when he knocked out Costa. So I don't know. Like maybe the jump to 205 had some sort of impact on him with his weight cutting and the gyno stuff. Like maybe that did something weird to his body. Kai Kara France had that concussion in training camp. Who knows what the hell those guys are doing over there? If your direct teammate is getting concussions, I'm going to assume that you're doing similar shit to get concussions.
Iron sharpens iron, baby.
And I'm not going to take anything away from Strickland because I don't think Izzy went into this fight impacted. I think that Izzy is just trending in a certain way that a fighter with this, he's got a lot of wear and tear on his tires, man. Like I'm really hesitant to get a big sweeping takeaway, but I'm starting to have the twinges of Machida after guys started figuring him out. It's not that they were always destroying him, and Machida still won plenty of fights and was one of the best fighters in the world, but when the mystique faded and when he no longer had fighters beaten or befuddled coming into the fight, you think of Anderson Silva. Think of the fighters. Think of when he fought Talis Laitis. Talis Laitis he lost the fight walking to the cage. Yeah. Like he was done because he's like, I don't know what I'm going to do. You could see it in his eyes, and you could obviously the fight played out the way it did, and he had nothing to offer. And the mystique of Anderson Silva was there. The mystique of Israel Adesanya is not what it used to be, and therefore that psychological edge that was a definite. Obviously it has to be a factor. Whether that's the explanation, I don't want to go that far, but it played a factor. When that's gone and you're just, when you're human, when if it bleeds, we can kill it, then it's a whole different ball game from an indestructible champion when Ray Borg goes to try and fight Mighty Mouse, and Mighty Mouse is so bored, he's like, I'm going to make something up. He didn't, obviously. He drilled the Mighty Whiz bar, but the point is that psychological tip of the spear he had, it's blunted, and that's okay. But I don't know how he would fare in the rematch, but I don't want to see it. And I think the problem, my biggest problem, and we probably should move on to another segment. The problem with Izzy getting the rematch, it probably will be sooner than later. And what will Israel Adesanya learn in 4 months? Now, sure, he could come back and destroy, and fine, okay, then what do you do? But then we're stuck on another third fight.
Then you're stuck on, well, no, Sean Strickland didn't get the rematch because Pereira didn't get the rematch. But I hate is a word I don't like to use very often. I hate these immediate rematches. The idea that a challenger has to beat the sitting champion 2 times to hold the title. If there's a Machida. There's a Machida Shogun situation where there's some controversy and Machida won the decision, but everybody goes, I don't know. Or what?
Chael and Silva, like that could be ran back.
Sure,
Almost
something like that. And they didn't run that back. They let that simmer and build up, and the rematch sold more. So there, it's short-sightedness. It's stepping over dollars to pick up pennies. And I think let Sean Strickland fight Dricus du Plessis. Let him fight Jared Cannonier again. I don't care. Just not.
He beat him the last time they fought, in my opinion. I thought he beat Jared Cannonier.
Right there.
And we'll use this to just cap this off. So for Izzy and for Strickland, I want to matchmake for them real quick.
Sure.
You said du Plessis, and then also too, one more thing is, do you think that now that this hey, just pressure Izzy, crowd the space, bomb on him with stuff, force him against the cage, do you think more guys are just going to go out there and try to do that? The way that Jared Cannonier fought Marvin Vettori, why couldn't he just walk down Izzy, check his kicks, and then just bomb on him with bigger punches?
Yeah, you think that approach might be, well, I mean, this is the hard situation. We've talked on many shows and many times over the years that X fighter can do what they achieved in the cage. Y fighter may not have that skill set to be able to replicate that kind of situation, where you think that if Adesanya fought du Plessis instead, and du Plessis is a marauder, du Plessis is if I get knocked out, awesome, good job, but I'm going to run at you basically and charge you and hit you with standing hammer fists and anything,
a whirling dervish of craziness.
If they throw a chair in the cage, you try and figure out a way to smack him with it too. Just whatever Dricus could do, it might, but it also might have been the Strickland approach, because Strickland was so defensively sound that you look and you go and see, well, Derek Brunson went at Izzy and he got dropped 3 times in a round. So
interesting.
Maybe it's just like a Brendan Allen, Nasruddin Imavov, who are defensively sound and can go forward. I mean, Brendan Allen's defensively sound, but he's got a good jab.
He's also training with Cliff, so he's probably getting better.
That's right.
And he's doing some training with Sean over there. I think for Izzy, there's 2 ways you can go with it. You can try to, squeeze as much blood from the stone as you can, and you could try to throw him back in there with a rematch with Sean Strickland. Or what you can do is you can let Sean Strickland fight Dricus du Plessis.
Yep. And
if du Plessis gets the belt, then that fight's there.
Yep.
But I think instead of, if Khamzat Chimaev goes out there and dominantly finishes Paulo Costa, he would earn a title shot because it's the UFC. But I think to really boast his star power, if he goes out there and finishes Paulo Costa, I think a fight with Izzy and Khamzat would be, hey, you use him as he's been the champ, he's held the belt, he sold you plenty of pay-per-views. Let's use this guy to get over Khamzat if we think Khamzat is who he really is.
That could be the rare non-title UFC pay-per-view headlining fight.
Totally.
I think of those options.
Double A sides.
But even I just for Chimaev to get 1 win at middleweight over the number 6 guy and get a title shot just makes me kind of laugh. And they really want to do it.
Yeah.
But I think Paulo Costa is going to beat him. So I think that's for moot. And I think then they're going to be like, oh boy, because lest we forget, Chimaev can do that against Kevin Holland, tall, wiry, rangy. Paulo Costa is 230. Weighing in at 186. So
it's low key one of the more hard fights for Khamzat, stylistically.
It's a brick wall, yeah. And we saw Paulo Costa take on Yoel Romero and just smash each other in the face. Just they're hitting themselves, going, "This is too much fun,"
and never die. Both of them never die.
I thought that Romero's jaw was broken, but that's not the point. Yeah, a bomber's delight.
That was, I would talk about this forever.
Yeah,
because,
I know.
This fight was actually funny too. This was one of those comical. final thing before we move on. We've been on this for 34 minutes and some change, but this is important. Biggest upset in MMA history, not including WMMA. Is this it, or do you still count Matt Serra GSP thing? What's a bigger upset for you? In
terms of bigger upsets,
screw the numerics. Like, what for you?
Okay. Well, GSP Serra is far and away. When Serra beat GSP, it's a different stratosphere. I mean, Serra won a season of The Ultimate Fighter as the comebacks of the fighters that were basically doing very poorly in the UFC, worked his way through, didn't beat Chris Lytle in the finals in a not great fight, and then beat George St. Pierre, who was not at the time the destroyer of worlds that he became in terms of dominance and what have you, but he was still a top tier fighter that, you know, also happened to be the champion. Is way leagues above Sean Strickland winning. Michael Bisping knocking out Luke Rockhold is a bigger upset for me than Sean Strickland beating Adesanya. In fact, I think their situations are similar, and not just because if you made silhouettes of both of those guys, they would look almost identical, Bisping and Strickland.
So but weird.
It's it probably can close in on my male fighter top 5. But like if we open it up like Nunes and Pena and Shevchenko and Grasso are also way above this for me, just for me. Sure. And just because, yeah, I agree. I didn't have a foreseeable path that Strickland could win, but this is a Sean Strickland who was like 14-5 in the UFC, had beaten a bunch of top 5 guys to get where he was. It wasn't oh boy, okay, number 12's in here to, you know, this is Joe Soto fighting TJ Dillashaw. What are we doing here kind of situation?
Yeah, and Sean has no bad losses. Like, if you really, truly look at them,
I mean, like losing. Pereira's the only one, I guess, but that, you know, Pereira hits like 2 trains.
Yeah.
In each hand.
Yeah, no, 2 in each hand. Look like he's just something different. So yeah, that was I'll probably watch this fight again tonight. It's just like when I watched it later that night, I watched it again and I was like, my fiance was like, why are you watching it again? And I told her, I was like, I have to watch this again because I did not believe what was happening throughout the whole thing. And dude, shout out to Sean Strickland too. Like, did you see the video he posted today of his belt broke on the way home and he's duct taping his belt to fix it?
Duct taping the UFC belt that broke 2 days after receiving it. It's this fight is the epitome of something that I took from Ben Duffy, Sherdog Senior editor Ben Duffy, about probably going on 3 years now when we were talking about previewing fights, and he said, you know, the best kind of fight is where I learned something. Not necessarily that I was right or that I was wrong. It's that I learned something new that I just wasn't available. It taught me something about both fighters. It gave us the most interesting storylines in the most bizarre timeline that is the year of our Lord 2023. Just Sean O'Malley and Sean Strickland are UFC champions.
Well, we'll move on. So something that was not as unexpected, for lack of better terms, was Tai Tuivasa getting an Ezekiel choke by Alexander Volkov. He got Ezekiel choked. Volkov came out and said he learned that choke from Olenek. That's kind of cool, right? It doesn't matter anymore after the Strickland Izzy thing. It kind of like, you know, the coolness really went down, but still pretty cool, right?
It's the kind of thing you like to see from fighters. Yeah, the whole Russian connection thing, of course, we can talk about that another time. But I think back to when Alexei Olenek hit a scarf hold. It wasn't Ezekiel. It was the scarf hold, the low on the ground, sort of like a schoolyard bulldog, what have you, kind of situation. Basically that. To Jared Vandera. This was back, I think this was last year. And at the end of the fight, they're backstage and they're walking down the hall and they're fine. They're not hurt or anything. It was like a first round submission. Vandera's hugging him and he says, "Teach me this submission. Teach me this." And there's a video out there of
I've seen it.
Oleinik showing him how to set this thing up. To see Volkov hit, okay, of all the UFC fighters remaining on the roster, I would and I would not have put money on Alexander Volkov being the next fighter to pull off an Ezekiel choke. Because first of all, it's as we call it in the industry, a big man submission. It's something that you physically have to have longer arms and the torso to back it up to be able to pull off this move, and the weight behind you to not let fighters get off. Of course, there have been Ezekiel chokes in lower divisions. There's been Ezekiel chokes at strawweight. But statistically speaking, it's a big man submission. And Volkov has 80-inch wingspan. But of all the things that I was most impressed about in that fight between Volkov and Tuivasa, it wasn't the better striking or the body stuff or busting up Tuivasa's nose. It was I'm going to get an Ezekiel choke. It wasn't, there was no, I fell into it. There was no anything like that. It was okay, I'm on top. I'm in mount. Here are my arms. Here it is. We're done. Like this was not an accident. This was, I got this guy. And that was something else to me, man.
I have never been in an Ezekiel choke. This reminds me of when Kevin Holland submitted Chiesa with that like standing darce, and my chick was like, "What is that? How does that work?" And I was like, "I'll show you what a dart. Like I can explain it to you." And and like she's like, "Okay, that makes sense." But like an Ezekiel choke to be choked out by someone that's so large because your face is just being embedded into their sternum area and their chest area, like
that's
it's probably like being drowned.
Yeah,
it's got to be like being drowned. It would be really funny if Tuivasa did it to somebody because his body would go around them like a clay mold. But Volkov has gotten so much bigger. He's so strong now. And I love that he was firing off of all the leg kicks. DC, he's a shield for Tui. He's a Tui guy, and that's fine. But he's like, these leg kicks are really adding up. And it's like, no, Volkov is checking them and firing off of every single one and hurting Tuivasa. Tuivasa was like on skates and hurt and rolling. Like Tuivasa was like getting plunked, falling onto the ground, walking up to Volkov, kick him in the leg, getting plunked, falling to the ground. Like this fight was never going to be close. Volkov just kind of like, yeah, the leg kicks were nice. I understand that's Tui's game, like that, and it was a good idea, but like he kind of just got shit kicked, right?
It's the kind of fight that they're gonna make Tuivasa fight Tom Aspinall next. Like they just like this is like UFC 299. It'll be called, like, the subtitle will be Killing Tuivasa because of how the horrible matchups. This is, I think somebody touched on this on a post-fight show. It might have actually been Shillen and Duffy, and if it is, shout out to those boys. This was the equivalent of matching Molly McCann up against Aaron Blanchfield in New York. What are you doing? This is the wrong fighter for this fight in this situation. This is the bad matchup. This is everything that was going to go wrong, except for the fact that it wasn't even like a club and sub. It was like a club and snake eating its 266-pound prey.
The way he got into mount, like slowly into mount and just getting in, like people say Volkov can't. Problem. Like I've always thought he was really good, and he was going to be like my sneaky heavyweight pick, but he got scooped up.
Yes,
for the fantasy thing by somebody. For Tuivasa, man, like I'm convinced that him and Jessica Andrade have the same manager.
I mean, they're just gonna book them into the ground, man.
It's like, what the fuck?
Why? Tuivasa will very quickly become, and he might have already become the I'm not gonna put him in the same threshold, but in the same type of fighter, Donald Cerrone, Nate Diaz, that their popularity is not contingent about winning and losing. because when they get that win, that's all that matters. They could lose 2 and then get that big knockout, that big something and happen. And that's what Tuivasa is. And they're just, I mean, like, let him fight Chase Sherman.
Dude,
give him a break. Give that boy a break. Let him drink his beer in peace.
I heard someone say, and this is no offense to them, but even somebody was like, yeah, but they should maybe put him up in there with like someone like Martin Budai. And I'm like, someone that's just gonna like drag all over him though. He got his ranking off of a slobber knocker with Derek Lewis. But besides Derek, which was beautiful, but like they really need to, I mean, Volkov is just not much of a step down from Gane and Pavlovich. Like he really isn't. On the right day, like Volkov could compete with those guys. Like Volkov is good. Like he's good enough to compete with those guys. For me, he's on the same level as Curtis Blades and Jailton Almeida.
Oh yeah. Oh, absolutely. He's
like 2B.
He is a right on the top 5. He is. I mean, I don't want to say you can't call a guy in the top 5 a gatekeeper, because that's so the connotation of that word is so harsh, because it means you can never make it to the top. But Alexander Volkov is a perfect top 5 gatekeeper. If you beat Volkov, you are legit. I also think that if Volkov and Gunn were matched, I think Volkov would win that fight. That's also because Volkov is now 265. All muscle, cuts weight down probably, if not, it's a little cut, and he looks sharp. But it's all too bad. It's all too bad, because that other fight that happened right after, it took all of its steam away.
All of the juice, yeah. And I like Volkov. He's like sitting on shots, throwing a shot straight.
Yeah.
He's like, if you want to punish him, he is making sure to always be the one to close up the exchange. That's what he did against Tuivasa. He was brazen enough to stand in the pocket and say, hey, I know you're going to leg kick me. I'm going to check it and just fire a straight shot right back. It was a really good performance by Volkov. I really liked what I saw. And like Tuivasa, this should have been Tuivasa at the most Jairzinho Rosenstrike.
Yeah, that would have been
what this fight
that would have been a fair fight, a top 15 flamethrower. Give him that.
And he should be fighting the same people that a guy that looks just like him. If you look at a silhouette, Justin Taffa.
Like give him the Taffas of the world. Yeah,
like he should be fighting those dudes. Just so he could smoke them. Like, and
I don't think anybody get knocked out in those fights. They're just too darn rectangular.
They would look.
I don't know if they'd fight, but yeah, I mean, I get
like the Austin Lanes or like just that level of dude.
Oh, we're going way down the ladder to give Tuivasa a bounce back. I mean, I was thinking like a Marcos Rogério de Lima type, but if you want to,
yeah.
I'm not really matchmaking guy on 3 losses. He's going to stay for a long time, but I just feel for the guy. It hurts me to say it, but he's becoming a guy who was known for his antics and not his ability. Like he's getting some cool knockouts, but it's the beer, it's the shoe.
Yeah.
That's what people come to see. If you take that away,
he's not in the UFC.
No, he's in the UFC, but he's just a guy in the UFC.
Sure.
He'd open the prelims.
Yeah.
Or the main
prelims.
Yeah.
He'd be shoved in like a Apex main event as like the second fight in as like the obligatory heavyweight. He'd be third to last in the featured fight slot in the unranked. What the hell is this heavyweight fight doing on here? Yes, absolutely. The bacon, I call them the bacon grease fights. Just the big, like, just a random ass,
the walrus slapping. But they take up the slots that should be deserved and held by very talented flyweight fighters that put on absolute battles. And I think there might be one that we have.
This fight was really interesting. Manel Kape defeats Felipe dos Santos via 30-27. However, this 30-27 was the closest 30-27 you could get.
Well, yeah, there are 30-27s, and then there are 30-27s, and this was the latter. This was the Will Vander say you could put a cigarette paper between the two. This is an extremely close fight between Kape and Dos Santos. Was it your fight of the night?
Yeah, totally. And they did get fight of the night, right?
Quinones? They did get it, yeah.
Yeah, because Quinones could never hurt Haqparast, and both of these dudes hurt each other like visibly.
Yep.
I think Quinones' issue in that fight was he could not sit down on a single punch. No. Like he could not. Like he just doesn't have the punching power to hurt Haqparast. But this fight, Felipe Dos Santos, 22 years old, gets pulled off the Contender Series, Shudo box guy. I mean, I don't want to curse on here. I'm not supposed to. It gets flagged, but this dude showed the fuck up.
Dude, he would have iced the guy he was going up against on the Contender Series.
I think I said that. I think I said that in the chat. I was like, yeah, Felipe Dos Santos would have nuked his opponent off the Contender Series. He's good. This has got shades of, oh my God, what's Usyk? What's his first name?
Steve Usyk?
Yeah, like this has got shades of, yeah, like where these dudes are just showing up. First off, for anyone listening and that knows me, knows that I really love flyweights and I really love bantamweights. And this goes to show you, like, flyweights have to be good at fighting. Like, you cannot be, like, flyweights just have to be good somewhere. Of course, you get, certain ones here and there that Shannon Ross, blah, 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 guys like that. But, like, this kid, he's the epitome of a Shudo box fighter.
Yes, he is. He like the blonde dye job and all the way through to the soul. This is a guy who dyed his, heart blonde, basically. It's he fought in a throwback style with new, with new approaches. Like, it wasn't Shuto box like the Shuto box that we are used to from Pride. It wasn't the kill or be killed, because there was some incredibly impressive technical displays. Like, some of his footwork was way advanced for now. I think he's, happy birthday, buddy. I think he's 23 today. Just the kind of thing that when you see fighters on regional circuits, or when you see them on, whatever, just some other a regional promotion, and they're like 6-0, and you're like, okay, I see the potential here, but it needs to, there needs to be a lot of shoring up their holes or deficiencies. When I saw this kid at 7-0 with a no contest, which was due to like a groin shot or something like that, I see a guy who is ready. And that's surprising, because UFC level is so down in the basement now that there are fighters that I don't want to individually name because that's cruel and unfair to them. But there are fighters that are signed like this week that you're like, wow, they're a UFC fighter now. Congratulations. That was something I never would have imagined. And then there are kids like this who have the poise, who have the ability to step in the cage, not let, I don't know how many people were in the Kudos Bank Arena, 19,000 people hooting and hollering, rooting for him, because remember, they hate Manel Kape because of the Kaikar front situation and the bottle throw, which was a really, really good shot, by the way. And to have all of that behind you in the brightest lights in your UFC debut, where you've had one fight in a decent promotion, I say decent as in LFA, I believe it was the LFA Brazil show back in last November, to come to here and to put on that show, well done, lad. This was I don't think you could have a better showing and stock up performance after a loss than what Felipe Dos Santos did.
Even after the fight, he goes up to Manel, he congratulates him. He jumps on the cage before Manel does. Yeah. And he's like, fuck yeah, I love this. He's like, amazing. Let's do this. This was awesome. He was feeling himself. Again, he didn't do what Volkov did, but they both, he was making sure every time Manel Kape threw something, he was throwing back at him, always finishing the exchanges, always. I mean, he wobbled Manel Kape multiple times in this fight. He got dropped by Kape, got dropped right away. And 90% of dudes on the raw, like I can think of like Brandon Royval, Brandon Moreno and maybe Pantoja would have taken that shot and had like a similar response.
Yeah.
But like not many dudes are taking that shot and coming back, coming like I don't even know if Kai Kara-France could have taken that shot and came back.
Because it wasn't that he just came back. It wasn't that he was just I took I got dropped by Manel Kape and I got back in. It wasn't that. It was I got back up and I went, all right, Mr. Falcon, let's do this thing, and threw right back at him. Like, this is a guy who was dropped seconds ago, and he's swinging right back. With
winning exchanges within 30 seconds. Like, he gets dropped, he stands up, and he wins the next exchange.
Yeah.
And he's, like, forcing Manel to get on the back foot. And this should not be like we shouldn't look down on Kape because of this.
He got more than he bargained for. I promise you that.
I think more than anyone that looked into this fight was like, yeah, this is a wash. Yeah, this poor kid's going to get iced by Manel Kape. Yeah. We had a lot of that Saturday night, man. People that just showed the F up. They should probably just rebook the Kai Kara-France fight at this 100%. Point. Like it's there.
Stupid not to. They're going to go. They go back to I don't know, Melbourne. Sorry, Australians. But if they go back to Melbourne in like March or something like that, throw that on there because Kara-France has concussions, and I don't know the status of them, but I think they're going to resolve and kind of get his head right because that's the fight. But am I crazy for thinking that if that had been Kai Kara-France standing across from him, Kara-France would have just probably not picked him apart, but and I use the word dismantle, so I don't want to reuse that term again, but would have put the screws to Kape. I feel like he would have made Kape pay in ways that Felipe dos Santos did, but didn't quite do enough. Like, I feel like in terms of raw punching power, Kai Kara-France is up there. And I feel like he would have really taken it to Manel Kape if they had fought Saturday night. I mean, we're going way off the rails, but
sure. Yeah. Possibly the only I just don't know if his durability would hang. That's
a good question.
Like
Kape got his spell wrong in training camp, so
Kape's a violent dude. Yeah. And I'm so happy that Dos Santos, there wasn't any fucking bullshit. Like, he missed weight, so he lost part of his purse. The dude showed up, made weight, badass effing fight, didn't get his win money. Who gives a shit? Because his win money is $12,000. He got $50,000 instead.
Life-changing money for this gentleman, by the way. This is a different league of paycheck. Just that $50K. The $12K is good, but
yeah, I would rather him getting a win over Manel Kape and a snoozer of a fight and getting 12-12 is not as good as having this fight getting 12 and $50K.
Oh no, he's in good. Dos Santos is arguably in better shape because Kape still has to fight Kara-France next. Like, he went nowhere. I mean, he had a great fight and he was $50,000 richer, but Dos Santos now went from a guy who was gonna squeak in on the Contender Series to this guy
Chanel, maybe.
That's not bad.
Sumaderji, something like that.
Alex Perez, somebody like that, who's kind of on the outside of the top 15, and he can hang with him if that's what we're getting. If that kid on short notice can turn that up to 11 with a full training camp, flyweight division ruls.
Yeah, I was kissing this kid's ass in the freaking Slack. You saw me. I was freaking he melted my heart. That was really, really awesome.
So I know we're kind of speeding over on time, but there is some really interesting thing in the news that I really wanted your opinion of. In the MMA news world, we're not going so did you hear what they said in the press conference? No. This was in Phuket, Thailand. And this is a very interesting situation that broke this morning, courtesy of the Phuket News, based on an incident that allegedly occurred in September 3rd, so it's a week ago, where Khusein Askhabov, who is a UFC fighter, he was 23-0, and he fought Jamal Emmers and lost, and his twin brother, Khusein, were arrested in Phuket for charges of kidnapping, torture, extortion. And what happened is, and the specifics are still coming out, where the two brothers were involved with three guys from Kazakhstan, three Kazakh individuals that haven't been identified yet, that broke into some Italian man's villa in a popular Phuket resort, and they held him hostage. They beat him up. They allegedly tortured him and stole, I think it was 12 million baht, which is, I think it was like 300 and something grand in American dollars of money and valuables that he had. I think there was some crypto involved too. So this UFC fighter, Khusein, was not one of the individuals that was in the room at the time, allegedly. It was orchestrated. Like, so this Italian guy was marked, and I guess whomever it was knew he happened to be loaded. And they proceeded to beat the stuffing out of him and tie him to a chair. And I believe they left him bound and gagged when the resort staff found him. Like, they didn't go, okay, we're good now. They left him. Yes, exactly. There's a photograph of the situation. So yeah, the UFC has already responded and said, we're aware of it, we're gathering information. But suffice it to say, Khusein Askhabov's fight with Daniel Pineda on October 7th is canceled. So what do you think about a UFC fighter allegedly being arrested for involvement in kidnap, torture, and extortion in Thailand?
You know what, Jay? You know what this all loops back to? Fighter pay. No, I'm kidding.
Well,
Carl Roberson and this guy have a lot in common, apparently. I am usually hip to these current events. I worked all day and got off work, pivoted. My work computer is here. I pivoted to my other computer here, and started this show. So I had no idea. I knew he just got matched up. That's effing crazy.
I stole, according to the report on Phuket News, Rolex, another a Nautilus, I believe, kind of watch, fancy watch. I'm not a watch aficionado. There are 3 very fancy watches, a fancy computer, and a bunch of phones. They stole his passport. They stole his bank cards. They stole his password. They beat his passwords out of him. This was a targeted, deliberate, we're going to take everything you have kind of situation. And the 2 brothers are connected in some way.
It's like a bad guy in a movie.
It's like
some Die Hard shit.
It's a movie situation.
What?
The three guys, according to the report, flew out of the country before they got bagged, and it doesn't actually say where the Askhabov brothers were arrested. But
so they just dipped out. Are they being extradited? Where are these dudes?
I don't know.
Are they in custody?
They're in Kazakhstan somewhere. Just they flew from Phuket to Dubai to home, and I guess if they know they went through customs, they have the identities of these men. So I'm sure they're going to be in custody and extradited because this is an international incident. But so yeah, there you go. Khusein Askhabov is probably one of the most creative ways to get out of a UFC fight coming up next month.
He's probably going to lose that fight too.
Daniel the Pit Pineda
might have
probably was going to knock him out.
Might have been a real pit bull to him. Yeah, that's very bizarre. I don't even know what to say. I will look more into it right after this. I'm going to read about it. Weird. That was our current event.
Let's talk about some fights now.
Yeah, moving on. We're going to move straight into fight coming up this weekend, UFC Noche in Las Vegas. So it's their Mexican Independence Day card thing. Is that what it is?
Yes.
But it's not in Mexico, which is fine because Lord have mercy, imagine them doing it up in Mexico City at Elevation. It's gonna be in Vegas. And we got Shevchenko versus Grasso in the rematch. We're only going to give you guys 2 fights because we spent a lot of time on Izzy and Strickland, but I thought it was deserved. First fight that we're going to talk about is Kevin Holland versus Jack Della Maddalena. Kevin Holland is a plus 136 underdog, while JDM is coming back at minus 156. So slight favorite in JDM. Quick analysis. Tell me what you think about this fight and who do you have winning?
Well, it's a darn shame because I was planning on talking about Lupita Godinez and Elise Reed. So this fight card, this fight card is it's almost tragic Because at one period of time, if I'm not mistaken, I mean, this is a limited window and obviously schedules are in flux,
Sure.
had 3 humans that were from Mexico that had some sort of UFC title. And now Mexican Independence Day, they luckily worked out to put one champion on the marquee in the T-Mobile Arena, which is the bastion of Mexican pride, obviously. And it's a free fight night card. I believe it's on ESPN Plus. I don't think it's on the big networks. And the last 2 fights are really ones to watch. The other fights have varying intrigue, but personally, I'm really invested in seeing if Shevchenko can win the title back. But in terms of a stylistic clash, I really want to see if Della Maddalena can pass this test in Kevin Holland, because this is a very difficult fight for him. As we know, he recently had a whole bunch of snafu going on and fights falling out and big mess situations. And he took on a late replacement in Basil Hafez, who showed the heck up. Like, we've been talking about that. These guys that just showed up and did the thing. And he lost a spirited split decision to Jack Della. I'm a -700 crushing knockout artist favorite that also happens to have 6 hits too. I am concerned to a degree that Della Maddalena is trying to follow and emulate the Kevin Holland strategy of taking a whole bunch of fights in rapid succession, because that is not something every fighter is able to do and succeed at. But you find there's a very small number of fighters that really can get away with that. The ones that do, you don't have fighters that win twice in a month, twice in 3 times in 2 months. You can think of the individual names of the fighters. We're not going, to be like, oh man, there's so many that just compete so often. It doesn't happen because it, physically very difficult, training camps, expenses, and it's just physical condition. Kevin Holland is made for this kind of turnaround. And I don't know because remember, he fought Michael Chiesa at the end of July, and he hit a Darce choke, and I don't think he got hit more than like 5 times. And yes, JDM fought 2 weeks before, but that's really, really close proximity to the last fight. And this is something that Holland excels at. This is something he relishes, especially when it's a striker-on-striker matchup. I think this is a really tough situation for the much shorter. Kevin Holland will have 8 inches of reach. 8 inches on the hands, and his legs, Kevin legs go all the way down. Holland here is going to be able to rifle off shots on the range. We know JDM can get in inside and close the distance. I'm leaning towards the underdog. I'm leaning towards Holland here. I think that he's got the volume. JDM's got crazy pace, but Holland has the kind of consistent, frustrating, in your face pace that I think that Della Maddalena is going to struggle with. If he struggle with Basil Hafez putting the screws to him, I think Kevin Holland is going to be able to spring this upset and win it. I don't think he's going to crack the chin, but I think he's going to win a pretty safe decision.
Yeah, I think this is like a super smart underdog play, just like point blank period. I said earlier, I don't like to give betting advice, but even if Kevin Holland was like a -150 favorite, I still think it's a good number.
Yeah.
And the reason why is I think JDM's game is he's really a pocket puncher that relies on his vision, and he's really reliant on hooks. He's not a straight puncher really at all. And it's so stupid because we talked about the fundamentals. We really harped on that, but this is another one of those things. And what is Holland's best punch? Straight down the pipe. Straight right down the middle. He just murks dudes with that straight down the middle. He times it very well. Kevin Holland, I'm going to say Kevin Holland's probably the more powerful puncher than JDM too. And JDM is a known power puncher. Kevin Holland cracks. He hurts people. This dude was getting spinning wheel kicked by Wonder. Let's not forget that Kevin Holland is literally unhurtable. The dude was fighting Thiago Santos at 185 up a weight class. Look at Thiago Santos. and he was like, "Damn, Thiago, that hurt."
Yeah. He took shots from a primo Thiago Santos and was able to talk to him afterwards.
I just don't see how. I just really don't see how JDM, like, he struggled with the length of Randy Brown until he found Randy Brown, but Randy Brown is chinny. Kevin Holland's not getting hurt by that one shot. And if JDM has great jiu-jitsu, if he can club and sub dudes, that's Kevin Holland's game. Like, look what he did to the Dirty Bird. Look what he did to Chiesa. I could totally see him, like, he's going to drop JDM once in this round, because if Basil Hafez was landing clean shots on JDM, Kevin Holland's going to do it too. I wouldn't even be surprised if he club and subs him. Kevin Holland that's his game. Like, at welterweight, he is not only a puncher, but if you get hurt around him, he's going to lock up that like high elbow guillotine, some sort of Darce choke. He's going to cause you to shoot on him. He is a Travis Lutter black belt. He is shitty off of his back, but if he has you hurt, he slaps on a choke. I see a club and sub with this one, man. Holland inside the distance, you probably find that shit at like plus 400.
Yeah, probably. And if you have a black belt from the Michael Jordan of BJJ, then you really have it going.
Mm-hmm. Cool fight. That one's going to be dope. All right. Moving on to the final fight of the night. A rematch. And the odds have definitely gotten closer. I should have been more prepared because I would have loved to know the odds from the first fight. But we got Shevchenko coming in as a slight to moderate favorite. She's a minus 162 favorite. Grasso comes back at plus 142 as this kind of slight underdog. I'm curious to see what you think about this fight. Tell me who you got and tell me why you got him.
Well, you came to the right person if you wanted to know the information about their first fight, because Valentina Shevchenko was a minus 900 favorite with the comeback of Grasso at about plus 600. Obviously, your book may vary. So, yeah. First of all,
it's changed by like 400%, 500%.
I'm not at all surprised that Shevchenko is again the favorite fighter, the favored fighter in the betting line. Yeah, about 165, 160, and I think that's probably a smart bet if you were to bet that. But I'll probably talk about this on the Prime Picks column that comes out every Friday for the UFC cards. I don't want to tip my hat too much, but I'm going to tip my hat too much and say this wasn't a fight like Chris Weidman and Luke Rockhold, where that one situation had it, and until then because Luke Rockhold was taking it to Chris Weidman too. Like, I think that he was up 2 rounds at the time, and then Weidman tried the spin, and then he blew it and had his mistake. This is a situation where Alexa Grasso won the first round, and she won the first round impressively. Her boxing shown. She figured out the range much faster than I expected she would. I know she's an excellent boxer, and I know that that's her, that was the selling point, and I think they even talked about Mexican boxing because, okay, cool. I didn't know they teach boxing drastically different in different countries, but I don't want to digress too far. And then Shevchenko figured her out. Shevchenko started putting the combinations together. She started being able to beat her in the exchanges. It wasn't just that she was faster, it's that she was also able to hit the takedown. And Shevchenko has the ability we talk about Shevchenko as a kickboxer. Her best weapon might be her offensive wrestling of all the things that she has to offer, because she can get you down with 1, maybe 2 takedowns, and that's 3 or 4 minutes off the clock. That's
for controlled grappling.
It's like she is 125 pounds going on 190 when it comes to a flyweight fight, just in terms of when Dustin Poirier fought Khabib Nurmagomedov, between, I think it was the second round, Poirier turned to his ATT corner people and said, I can't get this guy off me. And it was that just kind of like that panic feeling. I cannot get Khabib to get off. Valentina, very underrated, has that kind of smothering but effective top control, because she is active too. It's not like she's gonna just hold you down and Jared Rosholt you. She's gonna work you over like with elbows or painting Caitlin Chukagian's face and all the things she does too. I think this was the situation of this sport is so high level, and when it comes to certain flyweights, they are so high level that if you make one significant mistake, it's all over. And obviously that's a cliche, and we know that. But when it really comes to this situation, it was that. Because Shevchenko was winning the second round. She won the second round. These were official scorecards. Won the second round, won the third round, takedowns, grappling, hadn't gotten a takedown in the fourth round, but she was out striking Grasso, and then did that one I'm too close spinning back kick that she does like to throw. This is something that Jack Slack has very righteously ripped her for, turning for spinning back kicks in close proximity. And Grasso made her pay. I think that was a lightning strike moment. I think that was not the level of Juliana Pena hurting Nunes on the feet and choking her out, but this was that quick strike, impressive 1 out of 10 outcome. Like, this is the one.
Sure.
I think, for me, I think that was the Shevchenko made a mistake. And Grasso brilliantly capitalized it. Like, I'm not taking away from Grasso, because she did exactly what she needed as a person, as a woman who is not a submission threat. Like, I think that was her second career submission, I believe, at the time. And her first was recently. Her first was Jojo Colorwood, like a fight or two before then. This is a striker first. And she seized the moment and capitalized. I don't see that happening again. I see 49-46. Grasso has a good round, and it's kind of that, that's what 8 of the 10 of these fights will look like if this thing happened 10 times. That's my impression. I'm looking forward to hearing how you bounce back, and if she bounces back.
Grasso did have a lot of success, even through rounds that she was losing up until that point. Like, just with her boxing, because her hand speed and her power did kind of give Shevchenko a little bit of problems. Shevchenko has always had this, like, the disparity of skills between her and everybody else was just, a Grand Canyon in between, where she could do stupid shit and like get away with it. Like, you can do a spinning back kick within the warning track, the black line, but like, why are you spinning in the warning track? Like, why are you giving your back?
Because she can. That was what it was until Grasso, because she could.
But now that like with Erin Blanchfield and all these other contenders coming up, like, she's gonna really have to button her game up if she wants to continue to be the queen and how we all think that she is. Obviously, Grasso's improved. I don't think, like, Shevchenko just needs to fight a Sean Strickland nuts and bolts game. Like, go out there, draw the cross. Grasso loves to throw her jab and cross. Draw a jab cross out of her, duck under, get her trip takedown. Don't go for like any weird, stupid hip throws. Like, don't fight like a stupid type. There's something in WMMA. We have fights like Conejo versus Vlismas, where like you just continuously head and arm. Yeah, like over and over. Like, she cannot fight a fight like that and win that fight. But she has all the tools, and she's good enough at everything to just have a nuts and bolts game where, like, just throw teep kicks at Grasso every time Grasso tries to crash the pocket. Throw teep kicks at her face, throw teep kicks at her gut, throw them at her chest. They don't, in women's MMA, like, I don't know why there's not more teep kicks to the chest. Like, because if I was a chick fighting a chick, I would just teep kick her in the tits over and over again. But just teep kick them, cause her to reset, make her get overzealous, take her down. Shevchenko on the ground, she's a great control grappler. She's a punishing grappler. She's not a crazy submission hunter. However, she did, get that beautiful triangle against Pena. But like, she will make you submit to strikes because she'll crucifix you and elbow your head off, or she'll get into side mount and elbow your head off. Like, when she's on the ground, she's actively chasing shit. She wants to do damage. I think someone like Shevchenko on a mission is also potentially very dangerous. Like Shevchenko defending her belt in another ho-hum title defense is probably not as dangerous of a person as someone that she's the bullet for a reason.
Yeah.
Like she's deadly. I'm going to pick Shevchenko here. And I actually think the odds, it's WMMA. Every woman's fight could also just be a pick'em, even if it's Shevchenko or Nunes at the end of the day, because weird stuff happens in MMA. But I highly doubt if Grasso wins again, numerically, it will not be a huge upset, but it will.
Just for a last thought from you, I think, since we're probably out of time. If Grasso wins this fight, what does it look like?
Not getting taken down and just winning 70% of the boxing exchanges in the pocket.
It's got to be not quite an outfight, because you don't want to have you want to let Shevchenko be in kickboxing range, and she can't crowd Shevchenko because then the body locks. So it's got to be like a beat Shevchenko in a boxing match kind of situation, because
I think so.
In terms of, if you were to paint the one, if you were to give the UFC ratings of all the different skills, I think that Grasso's boxing could be the 7 to Shevchenko's 6, or my point is the
Sure.
step up, the 8 to the 7. The number isn't as important as the notch over it, the raw, straight boxing. And I believe they have let's think, Shevchenko fights southpaw and Grasso's orthodox, so Grasso can have the jab, but Shevchenko's going to have the body kick and the head kick. Yeah, I guess that little thing that she did to Jessica, no big deal.
Jeez. So yeah, it's just, this is Shevchenko, and Shevchenko could still probably win a boxing match against her. I wouldn't say that she should. Yeah. If you gave these girls 16-ounce gloves and had them just doing sparring in the boxing, I'd assume that Grasso would probably win a little bit more of that. But Shevchenko's just good everywhere.
Yeah.
And as great of a boxer as Grasso is, the disparity in the wrestling alone, if one is 7 and one is 6, one is 7 and one is 4.
Yeah.
I'm on Shevchenko too, man. I'm not all over her, but from a betting standpoint, Holland and Shevchenko look like probably smart plays just based off the odds.
They may or may not appear in the Prime Picks column, and one Raul Rosas Jr. will not be appearing in the Prime Picks.
Terrence Mitchell, shout out to him for getting fights in the UFC, but
shout out to Alaska FC, my man.
Yeah, that's where Jared's from, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Uros Medic.
Mm-hmm.
Shout out to those guys.
Lauren Murphy.
Lauren Murphy, the title challenger.
She took it to Valentina Shevchenko, 4th round.
Yeah, but almost had it. Well, thanks for tuning in, guys. This is Check the Kick. We ran a little bit long. I hope you guys enjoy the long bit about Strickland. I enjoyed you, Jay. Thank you for coming on, man. I really appreciate it. Tell everyone where they can find all your stuff.
Sherdog.com, everybody. That's the best place to find me. You're on the Sherdog YouTube channel, and you can find myself in this very muted tone shirt all over the place on Sherdog.
It's a Dustin Poirier shirt. Thank you for tuning in, guys, and enjoy the fights.